Hi, who are you? I'm Carrie Lorig. I'm a name under the sand or a bowl of pomegranates under the sand. I'm a blue leaf straying from the socket of a beast. I'm a jewel thief born from a light grave. I'm possibly something misread. Like, for example, this from Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man by James Joyce, which Nick is reading right now for his class. We both thought the line was, "She is no priest to flirt with." How would you describe your approach to writing? I would describe it with everything. I mean that so seriously and so gently. I write every day, but I am also writing when I am not writing. And I don't mean to talk about that as like obsession, even though that's very much what it is, so much as that's just how I live and also how I work. Those things aren't really, I can't separate them. There's no line between poetry and other kinds of language for me. The line is not buried, it's not hidden, it's not an invisible fence, it just doesn't exist. I use poetry to say hello, I use it to touch you, I use it to talk about weather while eating fries on the forgotten coast. I think and breathe the way I bleed poems because it's always been the way I am. It's deeper now because I've given myself this permission to write and live inside the way I process language and land and magic and animal and emotion surrounding me. It is the way I am the most alive as myself, and it's the way I'm most able to love and be with others, which is maybe the most important reason I let that line between poetry and other kinds of language grow obliterated, grow non-existent. My approach to writing is to share and transmit how immensely I encounter, to ocean and how glorious and laughing and fun and private and disgusting and radiating that is. My approach is to be constant, to be attentive, to always be wide and aware and looking for potential, for possibility. My approach is to never not be a poet. Can you tell us a little bit about your poetry tour with Nick Sturm? I'm actually in his house right now. And this is something that we found at the beach the other day. I really like it. But I'm actually going to read part of a letter from my friend Brandon because he sort of asked me to just tell him about the tour. So, do that. Dear B, I liked the warehouse in Akron. There was fake dynamite in the bathroom, and Jamie bummed me a cigarette, and Mike Hertel was in the dirty wall of a tree reading us fog. I liked Pittsburgh at night from way up high. There was pineapple beer there, and it was exactly good. I swam in an impossible pool with a centaur statue in it in Chattanooga, Tennessee. I dove off the wall, and I let men draw my picture. Josh held the microphone for me when the stand broke in D.C., and that felt tender. We read poems at the monument with Laura and Mark and Newports and dragon fruit vodka. The pool was full of dirty feathers along the edge. Lexington was so quiet, and there was a bookstore. I remember the fire was in Adam Clay's backyard. I remember the sulks on the wall, the jukebox that was good in Athens, Georgia. Wendy, Gail, and Mike Young, how much I liked Erica and BJ waking up earlier than everyone and sitting on the porch while it rained. The bloodflower hoods and the crying in Atlanta, the falls in Yellow Spring that were old and wet, Nick taking my picture when I turned around, the sound cannons to keep deer out, the sea glass I am always finding. I was drunk in the backseat in Cincinnati, and I talked about disclosure. I put my boots against the window. I don't remember what I said. Austin or Nick said it was good. Dana Ward asked who was fucking who, and he had a driver named Charlie who was maybe from Iowa. I remember following my poems, their big, big sounds like a dark part of the ocean floor, thinking about how they stood and how they crumbled next to Nick's, next to other people that we read with, how sometimes people would be scared of me after I read or would feel differently about me. What will happen to the poems next is now the thought on my mind, the aching, opening, slipping apart. It was right to touch so many things, to be lost in constant movement and different contortions of city pulling at us and tiredness and love. Where are you now, bee? Tell me about your remains and the berries lost in them. Rain barriers or affection. C/red butter. 4. Who's one living writer that makes you particularly excited about writing and why? My choice today is Lisa Robertson. I think she exhibits so much of what I keep returning to as a poet and talking about and insisting with this kind of electric fist glinting in my eye, which is that she's so big, she's so wide, and that feels so important to me. She fills the page with herself and what she encounters. She's personal and she's soft, but she's also just not fucking around at all. She talks about Lucretius, she talks about Benveniste, Eva Hesse, Hannah Arendt, philosophy, art, cities, architecture. And her tone can be kind of deceptive. It sounds like a lecture. It can feel like a lecture. When you're reading it, you're like, yes, it's very rhythmic and calm. And then the things she's saying, though, are just so boiling, and they're so dense, and they're so dangerous and feminine and playful. She goes where she wants. She goes where is necessary. And I don't think poems do that enough. And poems are the things that are capable of doing that, of going where is necessary and urgent. And she's always thinking so richly. She's always writing what feels to me like the moment where you linger in the deep end of the pool, having just sort of cut through the water, and you're really soft and weightless, but you're also this like blood chisel at the same time. I don't know what it's like for Robertson, but I kind of can't stop writing these really long poems. And she sort of teaches me the grammar of a woman made of range and horizon and endlessness, that can kind of turn into this very intellectual, but also this very generous vulnerability. She helps me kind of channel my urgency, my loudness, my kind of aggressive tone in my poems into something more lingering, more radiating, something that kind of believes I'm capable of making statements as well as making howl music. I need to go get my computer charger, so I'll be right back. I should have played you a song while I was gone. Do you want to know what I learned how to do the other day? I learned how to throw a football. All right. What type of value do you place on the creative writing education you've received? This is a really difficult question for me personally. I'm here because of a long list of educators and education programs, because of high school teachers who pushed me to take creative writing classes, who gave me Sylvia Plath, because of the undergrad poet brigade that I ran around with and drank with and ate pie with and started magazines with at the University of Wisconsin, because of Amy Quamberry, who sort of looked me in the eye and told me to keep writing even though I wrote really differently from her, and even though I wasn't a creative writing major. In the MFA program now, my writing has exploded. Absolutely. I work constantly. I push myself every day. My knowledge of theory and poetry and literature has totally exploded. My ability to write critical essays and create critical conversations has exploded. The intense sharing I do with my cohort has made me an exploded thing. And this is the life I wanted to feed into my poetry, this intellectual one, this academic one. It's what I need to write poetry, and what I need to write the sort of being and becoming being that I am. It's what I need to be a person. And I teach too. I teach comp and literature and creative writing. And with those young people in those, stupid rooms, I feel an access to a kind of power that is tender and kind and generous, and it's always changing. It's so different from the power I sometimes feel trying to kill me and others, and that's everything. It's everything that I've discovered. There's a difference through my creative writing education and development, but I've also really struggled in my program as an experimental writer and as a woman, to be taken seriously, to not be dismissed, to not be belittled, to not feel small and weird and like a problem that has to be dealt with rather than a motherfucking artist, which is what I am. Being in academia can be crushing. Parts of it have crushed me in incredibly damaging and lasting ways. I would never say that's not true. I believe in monsters. But I also still really believe in academia, in creative writing education, that it can be better, that it is good now. I'm going to get my PhD in creative writing, and I'm going to be part of something that labors to keep this space a collective intellectual space, a place where things grow and flourish and become deep, sensitive forests. My model for this, in part, is the current poetry community and how it thrives, how it's this great mixture of academic and non-academic poets and somewhere in between. The importance of small press life, the importance that small press life sort of places on not only the individual. You can't get away with just like being a champion of yourself and yourself only. You have to be an individual that's kind of engaged in support and in creating support. And honestly, those are also the people who succeed in MFA programs. If you don't understand that being in poetry means giving yourself completely to poetry and other poets, then I don't think you'll thrive in the same way. Yes, but I think my creative writing education has really helped me understand that greatness is possible, that and that doesn't always have to do with winning Guggenheims, or as I like to call them, Googly Hymens, but that it's all about sort of creating energy and sustaining it. I like to imagine what our creative writing education system could be if we embrace more of that. We'd be unstoppable. I mean, I sort of already think we are, but more unstoppable. What are you currently working on? I'm working on my first full-length book, which is called The Pulp versus the Throne. There will be more to say about that soon, but right now I can't say very much. Who's your favorite rapper and why? Mark Higini is always sending me really brilliant things. He's sort of my personal curator in this department. We've also been listening to a lot of Drake here in Florida. This morning we just watched this video where he's in a white convertible and it's snowing. I love Kendrick Lamar in Earl sweatshirts and Kill the Vultures, Lil Wayne, Nicki Minaj, De La Soul, Ghetto Boys. And when I listen to someone like A Tribe Called Quest and hear them kind of absolutely fucking delight in language, I hear exactly what I'm so addicted to in poetry, which is play and the pleasure of play. But I'm not sure a favorite rapper is totally possible for me at the moment. One, because I might just not know enough and about rap music, even though I listen to it a lot. But also, for me, the absence of female MCs and the way females and their bodies are discussed and utilized in rap music is a really difficult thing for me. Kind of no matter how fun and brilliant and important rap music is, though it's also really important to say that this is an underestimated problem in other areas beyond rap music. Absolutely. What's the first album you remember acquiring? My dad was always very invested in music and how I experienced it. The first album I remember having or wanting to have is Elvis Costello's album, Allison. I remember listening to the title song of that album and understanding it made me sad, and that I was experiencing and kind of generating a not frightening sadness from something outside myself and outside my experience, current experience. How would you describe your relationship to the internet? The internet is one of the most important forces that poetry has behind it, period. It has allowed us all to become kind of creative pulses and creative champions for each other. Any kind of energy that I sort of have behind me as a poet comes mostly from the internet. Internet magazines and venues are willing to take chances on experimental poets. They're willing to cultivate diversity, and readers on the internet are just as willing to like be the audience for that. And the first person who published me, one of the first people who published me was Stephen Tully Dirks, who runs Pop Cereal. My style's not outlet, never has been, but I really appreciated that he put me there with them, and that was a great opportunity for me to kind of grow and be exposed to all kinds of things. I also write emails really consistently and constantly. I have been for years now to writers all over the country because I need to have conversations to write. I have to be aware of conversations to write. I have to have that sort of safe space where I can propel myself. I met my editors at Magic Helicopter, Tyler Gobble and Mike Young, through the internet. I collaborate with Russ Woods almost solely through the internet. I know about so many great writers because of the internet. Ariana Reigns, Banu Kapil. A big part of my life traveling to do readings and be with other poets is because of the internet. HTML Giant has been like incredibly supportive of these like weird long book reviews that I write. And while a place like that, you know, as anyone with a Facebook knows, has problems, I think the internet can be a place where abuses of power get checked, where writers can kind of cultivate themselves as models. Maybe not, well, they are fighting against these things, but they can also just be models of a kind of loving fight against patriarchy and racism and classism and other forms of institutional exclusion and short-sightedness. And we can do that by producing stellar, thoughtful, immense poetry and critical work. I mean, I'm not a kid who wins awards in my department. I got in off the waiting list. I'm not someone who's often a darling, so much as I'm someone who persists despite. And the internet has like welcomed that, has welcomed me as someone who works and who tries to do something different, maybe. I think that's about it. Yeah. What's your worldview in one sentence? I'm laying down on a cliff at the Ghost Ranch.